Hello friends, this is Growl. I'm sure many of you have already started gearing up, running dungeons, and farming the mod to get ready for raid. Although it's been fun, let's be honest, the game hasn't even really started yet. On the next weekly reset, the floodgates will open and you can enter Castle Nathria. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips on what you can be doing right now to get ready for raiding in Shadowlands. It might seem a bit intimidating at first if you haven't raided before, but it's really fun and you're about to get some sick loot. I hope this information helps you get an idea of what you should be doing to wrap up the week and start next week off strong. My first tip is to finish your weeklies. The 2 important things that you want to do this week are to get all of your soul ash from Torghast as well as finish your weekly renown. If you've cleared all possible wings of Torghast and completed all quests, you should have 1520 soul ash or 270 if you've already purchased a legendary. In order to get your max soul ash, there is 2 wings that you have to clear as well as 1 quest. You only have to clear the highest available layer in each wing, so if you did 1 through 3 last week, you only need to do layer 3 on both sides. The quest was to free soul remnants. These are ghost NPCs that you talk to throughout your Torghast run. It's super easy to do this quest, since each one freed also grants you 1% main stat buff, so it speeds up the run anyway. You may not want to grab a legendary yet if you have a good one that comes from raid on the first week. It still might be a good idea though to grab all of the stuff you need to make your legendary before next week though, since prices may go up and you want to have everything ready now to save time later. To get Renown 6, there are 3 different things you need to do. First is your 1000 Anima quest. This can be completed mostly by dungeons and world quests. If you're looking to cap this and haven't already, there's a short quest chain outside Theater of Pain that ends in a 750 Anima quest. Doing this alongside your 2 weekly dungeon quests will cap you without having to do really any other quests. Your second renown is to free 5 souls in the Maw. This one is super easy, and if you haven't already, you can easily knock this one out while doing a couple daily quests in 5 or 10 minutes. Once you get renown 5, you unlock another part of the story with a small quest chain that ends in a reward that gives you renown 6. With renown 6 and Torghast cap, you're good for the week. You may still want to farm dungeons for gear or do mod dailies for rep, but none of that is really necessary for raid week. My second tip is to clean up your UI and skill bars and make sure you're ready for raid setup. A lot of people are playing with a scuffed UI, old weak auras, and things on their skill bars that they can't even use anymore in this expansion. Take the time to get things ready for next week because you don't want to be pulling a boss and realize your raid frames are displaying incorrectly, or maybe you have skills missing off your bar. It's common that you run a different talent setup for raid that you do for leveling or in dungeons. Do some research if you don't know already what your best raiding setup is. Make sure you have any new abilities keybound and that you are used to using them. You may also want these abilities to show up a certain way on your UI. I'd recommend throwing on your raid setup for a quick easy dungeon run just to make sure that you know all your keybinds and that any UI elements run smoothly. Make sure you have keybinds for everything. You may not have a few set up yet that will be helpful for raid. Do you have your health potions and health stones keybound? You may also want a focus target interrupt if you don't have one already, and maybe even honestly just an empty keybind slot or 2 for later in case there's something that you forgot. In the UI section, I'd also recommend grabbing a boss mods add-on. If you don't have one of these already, they're almost a necessity for raid. The 2 common options are bigwigs and DBM. If you don't have one already, get it set up and move the stuff where you have space on your screen. Make sure you can see the upcoming mechanics, but don't let any of the notifications clutter your view. Third is to learn the mechanics, or at least the important ones. Raid fights in WoW can be really complicated, and having an idea of what's coming can be a big help. Don't be that guy that takes an hour for every boss before they figure out why they're dying. Especially if you're maybe trialing for a guild, or you just find yourself in a pug group with a lot of really good players. This could be your shot to progress very far if you play well, so don't put yourself at risk of getting the boot. You don't need to spend hours studying for the raid though, just take a few minutes to learn the important mechanics. My goal when going into a raid is be able to explain the boss in 2 or 3 sentences, nothing more. You can check out some videos on YouTube or simply just look at the dungeon journal. Learning what the boss spells do and what you need to do is really all that's necessary. A really helpful tool for this will be the Castle Nathria Week Aura pack. This is developed by players who are beta testing the raid. It's a small group of warnings and alerts that let you know when important boss mechanics are happening, and if you're targeted with something. I'll leave a link to this Week Aura pack in the description of the video. My fourth tip is to load up on Enchants and Consumables. These aren't completely necessary and might not be worth the money if you're mostly just pugging, but they can help. Again, the goal of your first week of raiding might not just be to get loot. Doing big damage or healing and making friends along the way can help you a lot down the road. Building your network early on will make finding groups for dungeons and raids later much easier. You may think of yourself as someone that just pugs, but hey, you never know. If you want to find a mythic raiding guild down the line, the best way is to start standing out from the rest. There are a ton of consumables and enchants, some of which are new to Shadowlands. In some items with sockets, you can place gems alongside enchantments, and there are a lot of short and longer duration consumables. While everything on this list isn't necessary, it's a good idea to have some or all of this stuff in your bags. Food buff, flask, oil, health potions, mana potions for healers, or battle potions for DPS and tanks. For enchants, I would recommend checking class guides to figure out what's optimal for you. You can enchant rings, your weapon, chest, cape, and some other pieces. All of this stuff can easily add up to 10% damage or healing gain, so don't pass it up. If you're trialing for a guild, you may have some of this stuff provided for you. I check with an officer and ask them ahead of time to see. My last tip isn't something you can do until the raid is released, however, I think it's an important and underrated thing that I don't see many people talking about. If you're pugging or looking for a last minute guild, clear the raid as early in the week as possible. This might seem counterintuitive, as you may want to gear up beforehand. The reason is that generally you're going to be finding better players in groups early on. Many of the nerdy, more dedicated players like me are going right in on reset to try and get some big loot because, well, we don't have anything better to do. Raiders and top-end guilds who have multiple characters and want to gear up their ults will often be found in pugs early in the week. Once you hit the weekend, however, many of these guys have already killed a bunch of the bosses and you'll be left with the weekend warrior Andes. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just when you're playing World of Warcraft, you usually want to be fighting alongside the nerds, even if they smell a little funny. Do your best to jump in the raid early to maximize your chances of being in a good group. This will not only speed up the process, but make things a whole lot more fun. Getting some good loot early will make pugging in Mythic Plus and other raids later in the week a breeze. On that topic, when you join a raid pug, start inspecting people and snooping around immediately. If you're taking the time to watch the video and learn what to do, you deserve to be playing with other players who care as well. If you start seeing people with much lower item level, missing enchants, not using food buffs and flask, get out of there. You worked hard on increasing your success in raids, so don't throw it away now. Wasting your time in a group that isn't going to go anywhere is a trap, because very often these groups are also filled with people who are just going to leave after one boss. There's a big difference between learning and not even trying. Be willing to stick it out with a group that has potential, but don't sink your time into one that doesn't. That covers my 5 tips on what you can do to get ready for raiding in Castle Nathria. Thanks for watching. Do you have a good tip that you think I missed? Leave it down in the comments for others to see. If you found the video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll be coming out with more in-depth guides for Mythic Plus and raid bosses. Happy keying!